The draft has come and gone, and it is Tuesday. So you know what we do around here. I got my guy So Real Sunil. We're going to talk about the draft. We're going to talk about maybe some UDFAs, and we're going to talk about where the 49ers stack up in the NFC after the draft. We're going to get to it all next. All right. Welcome back to Last Second Sports, where we are giving you our take down to the last second. It's your boy, Jesse. And like I said, it is Tuesday. So I got my guy, So Real Sunil, in the building. Sunil, what's up, man?
What's up is this hairstyle, dude. You looking like straight plastic. Everything's cut, sharp, faded.
I'm like a Lego man.
Right. You do. It does look super plastic, bro.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, as you can see, I'm on the road. This was tough to make it work. We almost didn't do it. The internet at the hotel that I'm at is atrocious. However, I found a little secret spot that they didn't want to tell me about. And now we got the good internet, but it's very, very noisy. So I am sorry if the quality is not up to par, but we got to get this off either way. Are you on the road too?
Nah, man, I'm home.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm like
usually if I'm on the road, my background's a lot better.
That's
when
true,
I'm at home.
Well, I would say this: the background in the room is kind of tight, but here, not so much in this business center. Either way, let's get to it, man. Let's talk a little bit about the draft. What was your favorite pick in this year's draft?
So, I mean, obviously the first pick was great, but I think that's kind of cheating. So I'm going to go with outside of obviously Jared Brown. I'm going to say D Winters, man. And the reason, excuse me, the reason why I like D Winters, I just think has the makeup of a prototypical 49er linebacker. He has the leadership ability off the field. I mean, that's obviously great. But then just his combination of speed and capability of being able to cover are obviously extreme factors for being a 49ers linebacker. And the one thing that I really liked about him, Jesse, and clearly by your reaction, he was one of your favorite picks as well. But you look at, he was the captain of his team, and he played on a team in college that overachieved. And for me, I think that tells a lot about the character and makeup of a player, being the leader of a team that outperformed what expectations were. And that run that TCU had last year, even though, they fell really short in the national championship game. I mean, you look at the game against Michigan and their ability to just, even make it that far into the playoffs. I think it says a lot about him. And a lot of people are talking about, he's in the image of a Dre Greenlaw. Obviously, that's that's a great comparison, great player, as we know. But his coverage skills is what I'm really excited about. He's somebody that could come in and even if he doesn't play on defense right away, immediate impact on special teams I think he could have with his speed. And overall, I just think character and innate abilities, he's going to be a good one for the 49ers.
Yeah, sometimes the 49ers just draft players and you say, oh, that's a 49er pick. And I felt like he fit that mold. I felt like Ronnie Bell also fit that mold. I want to get to some of these comments because they're actually pretty funny. Yeah, I am streaming from prison, and I've got about 40 minutes left on this call, so we got to get through it quick.
And I did press 9.
Yeah, you pressed 9. Thank you for accepting this. Randall says that his favorite pick was CMC and Trey Lance. This is how I know you're lying, Paul. You don't know the kicker's name. You just said the kicker. That's how I know that you're lying. Yeah, I mean, okay, so D Winters was my pick as well. But we both wanted to say Jair Brown, and we weren't going to, but I'm going to talk him up a little bit anyways, because safety was the one position that I said that the 49ers really needed most. I thought that was the position of most need. You've got a 33-year-old back there manning things with Hufanga, and they are going to either need an injury replacement at some point this year, or just some good depth and a future safety. And I felt like it was something they could have addressed last year. They decided not to in the draft with Jimmy Ward leaving. But now that he's gone, they traded up and got their guy. And I think, Jair Brown, he's not a perfect prospect. If he was, he wouldn't be a third round pick. But there are some things to like about him. I think he has a knack for the ball, plays a hell of a lot faster than he tests. I mean, you go look at his testing numbers, his RAS score is probably not going to be the best. But it doesn't matter when you actually watch him play. He's all over the field. He definitely has a knack for the ball, and he plays with great instincts. I absolutely love that pick. I don't know if he was necessarily the best safety on the board. There were some other good ones, but he is who the 49ers went after. They traded up to make it happen, and I think that it was a very good pick. But I think there were some other really good picks. We talked about Ronnie Bell. I think that's a 49er player, a little bit smaller as far as weight goes, but as soon as you turn on film, this guy is a blocking freak, which is exactly what you want in a 49er offense. He is going to high point the ball. He's very aggressive. I love that pick in round 7. I think Braden Willis in round round 7, I think he went. Also a very good pick. I think he might eventually replace Juice. I think might be the plan there. We'll see how that goes. But one of the best blockers in the nation as a tight end, both running and passing, definite need fit there. I think there were some really good picks that the 49ers made. However, they weren't all good, and we're not going to talk all of them up because, I don't know. I don't know what your grade is. Mine wasn't an A, so spoiler alert when we talk about that. But
before we go negative, because I see you trending already. So let's because I'm surprised about the Jair Brown and your sentiments towards him. I know it was kind of lukewarm, and I'm actually extremely high on Jair Brown. And the reason for it is you look at what the 49ers have been looking for in their secondary. It's been a stark change from the beginning of the Shanahan and Lynch era. They're looking for playmakers now. They're looking for ball players. They're looking for people that could be disruptors and people that could turn the ball over. There has been nobody in college football that has turned the ball over more than Jair Brown has. And it's not like he's playing for, a non-power conference team. He's playing for Penn State, a team that plays a lot of high-level competition. And for him to have the type of success and numbers he's been able to put up, to me shows that even though he might not test well combine stats-wise, he's a football player, much like Hufanga. And I think those two combinations are going to be really great. And more importantly, Jesse, why I think Jair Brown is going to be even more of a special player in this specific defense is because of the new defensive coordinator. I think this is the prototypical defensive coordinator that Steve Wilks wants. And I think that a lot of people said that if he just was, more athletic, he would be a first round pick based off of how he plays the game. It was literally just, combine numbers that led him to be a third round pick, but his ability on the field, he has first round instincts, first round production. Literally it's just those combine stats. And then the other guy that I wanted to mention, so we could just mention everybody pretty much, is Beal. I think that Beal at the defensive end, why I like him so much, because, last year he ended up leading the Georgia defense in sacks with 6 sacks without being a full-time player, meaning he's not there on every single snap, because we all know the Georgia defense, as far as the defensive line, is over there with the Eagles right now, but they're extremely elite. So his ability to still be productive without needing all the reps like other defensive ends need to get the type of production he did, I think is a great transition into what he's going to be falling into with the 49ers, right? He's going to be he's going to be in rotation because of obviously the talent that the 49ers have, but his ability to still produce, I think, is going to bode well for the 49ers, much like Charles Omenihu, who was able to do a couple years ago, much like Jordan Willis is able to do, not needing as many reps, but still getting high production. I think he's going to be a fan favorite very soon as well.
I like it. And I didn't mean to hopefully I didn't come across like I was downplaying Jair Brown. It's just reality. I mean, there are certain things that make you a third round pick, but I like Jair Brown. And when the pick was made, I was ultimately happy with it. And I like the way that they made it happen. They weren't going to draft 11 players. So move up and go get your guy. And initially what I thought was, okay, well, there's another position that they like, whether it's edge or tackle or corner or whatever, and they will go get that position at 99. It ended up being kicker. We'll talk about that in a second. But they moved up to make sure that they got that safety, which was the position of need or the player of need that they felt fit things most. And then they played it smart. They sat back and they stayed at 99 at 101. I really like how they made the move up, how they played it, and then got the guy that they wanted. And like I said, there may be better safeties that were on the board. There were a couple other good ones, but the 49ers didn't think so, and that's all that matters. I think Jair Brown's a fine player. He's one of the few guys that I actually watched during this process, and so that, should tell you that I do like him. But I do want to be realistic. He wasn't a first-round pick. There is a reason for that. And, we'll see how it plays out. But I think that they got a pretty good player here. I'm definitely excited about Jair Brown. All right. Everybody's making fun of my jail cell, aka hotel. That's what I'm calling it anyways. All right. Let's talk about the least favorite pick of the draft for you. Who was it and why?
So I don't want to say least favorite just because, any of these guys could turn out to be ballers. They're obviously, the ability to get drafted.
Hold on. I'm going to tell you what you tell me. All right. We don't play it down the middle here at Last Second Sports. We have strong opinion. I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
No, I'm going to say the most confusing pick to me. And that was Cameron Latu. I think just him being the tight end that they picked. Obviously, we all knew that they were going to pick tight end. I just was confused that he was the tight end, especially with some other guys there on the draft board that I thought were ranked higher and rated higher than him. I was just a little bit confused as far as why they went after him, what they saw in him over some of these other tight ends. He's not known for being a great blocker. He could block, and he obviously has great pedigree coming from Alabama. He has decent hands, but also a lot of drops. More of a, I guess, red zone weapon, which maybe was the reason why they liked him. But it didn't seem like the type of tight end that the 49ers are looking to play alongside George Kittle or be the heir apparent to George Kittle. It didn't give me those same type of vibes, which is why I was confused. And once again, I'm not a scout. I haven't done a lot of research into his tape. Maybe he does have a lot of these attributes. Maybe, Alabama held him back or whatever the case may be because of all the talent they have at receiver over there. But for me, that was the most confusing pick. I just didn't expect them to. I expected the position to get picked. I didn't expect him to get picked as high as he did.
Yeah, that's totally fair. And I saw a lot of people say that. There was a lot of tight ends that I'm sure other people were mocking to the 49ers or would prefer when they went through the process. But, again, there is obviously something that they saw. He wouldn't have been necessarily my pick at tight end, but I don't think that the tight end position at that point in the draft, that there was like a clear, hey, these four guys should have gone above them. If that's who they prefer, I think it was a bit of a reach. But at the same time, that's going off of what other websites had, what, mock drafts have. The league is so different, man. And this is what makes it hard is they could have had some insight like, hey, we really like this guy and we think that he's going to go much earlier than what a mock draft would say. And GMs look at this thing completely different. And that's why it's really, really hard when the actual draft comes around, because then what happens is, everybody's been mocking for months. They think they understand where these players should go, and the league doesn't necessarily always see it that way, and it makes it really, really hard. Michael Monahan says, I don't really hear any content creators saying, or didn't hear any content creators saying O-line was our biggest draft need. Now, Grant and a few others are saying that was our biggest need and didn't do anything. What up with that? I think Grant's always said it. I don't know what's going on with the other ones. I haven't really been paying attention. But I always said safety. My order was safety, corner, edge, or edge and then corner. and then O-line and tight end. So I don't think O-line was necessarily the biggest need. I think that the 49ers are actually pretty deep at O-line. It's just they don't have an upgrade at right tackle, and that's why people are panicking. But I don't necessarily think that they were going to find that upgrade in this draft, at least not year one. Maybe they could have found their upgrade for the future, but I don't know if year one it picked 99 or 87 or whatever that they were going to find that guy that would have started this year and been an upgrade. I just don't see it. And so to me, I'm not that upset over the O-line, but I do have a least favorite pick. And it's not because I don't think this player can be good. I think I actually was hoping he would end up being a 49er, but I just feel like the 49ers reached because they feel like they need this position. And that's obviously Jake Moody. I mean, kicker in third round is a bit wild for me. When I look at the landscape of the NFL, up until this year, the highest drafted kicker that was actually starting last year was drafted in the fourth round by the Cleveland Browns. By the way, he was also the 30th ranked kicker when it came to accuracy. Over 50% of the starting kickers in the NFL are UDFAs. And when you look at it, he ranked 37th in the NCAA from kicking accuracy. And 17 guys that ranked ahead of him were seniors, which means if you look at the statistics of who starts as a kicker in the NFL and you look at where he ranked in his own class, statistically speaking, even though everybody says he's the consensus number one kicker, and he may end up being that, but statistically speaking, he's actually going to be worse than a UDFA long term. And that's what the NFL tells us. And so when I look at things, I like Moody. I actually had mocked him to us multiple times. I actually do think he's going to be pretty good. But the only way to justify being picked in round 3 for me, he's going to have to be a top 5 kicker. And he's going to have to do that immediately. You know, you look at a guy like Robbie Gould, who was great in the playoffs, but he's been declining the last 3 years. He's ranked overall, I think the last 3 years, around 19th in the NFL from an accuracy standpoint. We know that his leg was going away as far as the strength goes. Moody definitely brings that, but his accuracy is really on the level of a declining Robbie Gould, and that is in college, not even the NFL. And so that does concern me a little bit. But man, this guy definitely has a leg. He's definitely going to put it in the end zone on a regular basis when it comes to kickoffs. And I just feel like third round is a bit too early for my liking anyways.
So let me bring some context to stats, because I like it when Jesse's creating a narrative and it's something that he's trying to prove. Stats need context, but when he's trying to prove a point, he's just going to throw out some stats with absolutely no context just to make his point be like all of a sudden Jake Moody is a declining Robbie Gould and all of this kind of stuff. First of all, his numbers or his stats from this last year were highly, highly skewed. Because of his strong leg, Michigan has him go out there and attempt some ridiculous kicks, 55 plus yards, close to 60 yards, so on and so forth. He went 3 for 7 at 50 plus yard tries. So if you take the 50-yard kicks out, because we could do that because Robbie Gould only attempted 2 of them. He did make those 2. So let's just take out 50-yard kicks. He went 26 of 28 last year and didn't miss 1 extra point. Those numbers are pretty damn fantastic. And then when you just go to why I think that the 49ers went ahead and selected him, remember, he's playing in Michigan in the dead of winter. He's not playing in Arizona. He's not playing in Florida. He's not playing in California. He's actually playing in a very, very difficult place for kickers because you have to deal with actual weather, which we're blessed to not have to deal with most of the time with the 49ers and playing on the West Coast. However, let's say 40 to 49 yards. Robbie Gould was 82% this last year. Jake Moody was 92% this last year. So think about it, Jesse, as far as the ability to now be able to score points and give your offense an extra 10 yards. To me, that could be game changing, especially with, how there's not too many areas where you could look at the 49ers last year and say, where can we significantly get better at, because the team played so well in a multitude of places. Special teams is a place where we could get significantly better at to make the team better. You mentioned one of them. We were 28th out of 32 teams when it comes to touchbacks in the kicking game, much because Robbie Gould didn't have a strong leg to be able to do that. Jake Moody is not going to have a problem doing that. And his ability to kick the ball, kick deeper field goals, I think is immediately going to change what this offense could do. You're giving the offense an extra 10 yards to still be able to score points. I think that's going to be game-changing for the 49ers. So I know you're trying to skew these stats and be like, he's not very accurate. And you're right. All of those numbers are true, but it's not like he's missing 20, 30, and 49-yard field goals. He's missing 55, 60-yard field goal tries, which is why his numbers are being skewed. It's not because he's not a very accurate kicker.
So one thing you mentioned was the extra points. We do have to remember that college extra points are a lot closer than the NFL.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So if we're to give context, we should probably give context.
Sure, give context on my numbers.
And so Robbie Gould, the last 2 years with the declining leg, yes, not the strongest leg anymore, but he did go 5 of 6 beyond 50 yards. And you're right. I mean, Moody is going to bring that element, but if you're 40% from beyond 50, it's like, okay, well, yeah, you can kick really far, but if you're not going to be accurate, do we really have the extra yardage? Like, what are we talking about? But again, he might be accurate. And like I said, he actually might be a really good kicker, but if he's slightly better than Robbie Gould, that's not good enough, because Robbie Gould has been 19th in the NFL over the last few years. Hasn't been a great regular season kicker. He's going to have to be much better than Robbie Gould, in my opinion, to justify that 3rd round pick, because here's what could have happened. They have Zane Gonzalez on the team, and I know everybody's like, well, I mean, Zane Gonzalez, he had a better college career than Moody did. And statistically speaking, like we said, undrafted free agent kicker actually is what rules the NFL. They're all over the NFL. Most of the starters are that. So you could have taken an undrafted guy and had him compete with Zane Gonzalez and let the best man win. Or if you were uncomfortable with it, you could go out and get a proven NFL guy. Mason Crosby still out there. Sure, it would have cost you a couple million, but they actually have plenty of money right now. So, okay, yeah, it saves you $2 million or whatever by drafting this kid. But man, to me, the value's not there. And the one thing that bugged me the most about this pick is that Shanahan himself came out and was like, well, we justify the pick because if you really look at things, most kickers are taken in round 4. Oh, word? Because really, before you made this pick, only one kicker in the NFL was drafted round 4. The rest were round 5 and later, and most are UDFA. So did you really understand the value of a kicker? I don't know, man. Like I said, I think Moody will be fine, but both things can be true. He can be good, but it's still a reach, and it was still a bad pick. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, but also, at what point are we going to stop running our head into a brick wall and understand this is the 49ers philosophy when it comes to round 3? They don't go best player available. They go best player available at a position of their need, right? So
it wasn't a running back. I'll say that.
Yeah. So I'm saying, like, we've seen this. I mean, you look at the last few 3rd round draft picks that the 49ers have had. You're looking at names like TDP. You're looking at Trey Sermon, no longer on the team. Ambry Thomas, doghouse, doesn't get any playing time. Like, you could go back and there's a lot of players in that 3rd round that they went off of, best player available at a position that they value. This is just what they do. And overall, the 49ers continues to have really great drafts as far as production of their players, guys that make the team, guys that are impactful. Not necessarily from the 3rd round. Let's just put it that way. But I do think Jake Moody is going to make the team. I do think he's going to be impactful. And that's why I'm just like, all right, well, is it ideal? No, but are we going to keep complaining about 49ers 3rd round? They're not going to change. We've already seen it. It's been how many years now that they do this every single 3rd round? We got to just accept it, move on, and understand that 5th round and below is where we get our real gems.
Yeah, and they did a great job of that, no doubt about it. I want to say one thing I want to point out is this comment here, because I heard this a lot. Like, hey, the draft's a gamble. It's not like you were going to get a good player out of it, necessarily. And that may be true, but it's a gamble. And so if kicker is such an important position, and this was the other thing that I heard was, well, I mean, who's going to contribute more this year than a kicker? Well, okay. However, if it's a gamble, how do we know he's going to be good? What if he's not any good? So wouldn't you, if kicker's so important, wouldn't you rather just go get a proven guy? Like I just named a guy that's out there, or make somebody compete with the kicker that's already on the roster and make sure that you're good there, and then gamble on a player that hopefully you don't need to play and you can develop them for a year and do the red shirt thing like you always do. And so I don't know. I think there's an assumption out there that Moody's for sure going to be good. I think he will be, but it's no guarantee. And if they did miss on him, then it's even worse than what I'm talking about now. Because I'm saying even if he's like league average, it's a bad pick. Unless he's a top 5 kicker, that's the only thing that I'm going to say, hey, he was worth it. And if he's not a good kicker or not even the best kicker in this class, bro, it's a god-awful pick. That's just my opinion on it.
Of course, pessimistic Jesse. Pessimistic Jesse.
Hey, I gave my favorite picks. I went through and said that there was like 6 picks that I like. Come on, man. Give me a break.
It's still pessimistic Jesse. It's all good.
All right. What was your overall grade on the draft?
I mean, it's so tough to grade this one just because they didn't really have the ability to do any kind of wow picks because there was no first round or second round picks. But I mean, I don't think they failed. But I don't think it was necessary. Like, I can't give it an A either. So I'd probably give it like a C plus in that range. I really think there's going to be some players that come out of this draft that are going to be really good players for the 49ers, role players, go in there and play. I think Brown, Winters, and Beal and Moody are all going to be contributors within the next few years, just like, previous drafts. So, yeah, I would say even like maybe like a C plus B minus is probably where I'd grade it at.
Yeah, I initially had it at like a C minus, but once I really started watching some of these guys, I actually bumped it up a little bit. I do think that there are some players, especially late, that are eventually going to contribute on this team, and I love that. I probably am going to put them at a solid C. I don't think it's the best draft that they've had, but it's also really hard to get an A when you're not drafting in round 1 and round 2. And one thing that we have to look at is basically their round 1 pick was Trey. Their round 2 and really their early round 3 pick would have been CMC. And I mean, if you start to throw them in the draft, all of a sudden, at least CMC, you're for sure getting an A. You know what I mean? Sure. And so that's how you have to look at it. But just on the players that were taken, I think there were definitely some head scratchers. We talked about Latu, talked about Moody. I don't know about taking Jalen Graham either, a second linebacker. That one was a little bit of a head scratcher, but these guys can all contribute and, possibly make the team. But I really do like a lot of the picks. I love the Ronnie Bell. I love the Braden Willis. Love D. Winters. Love Jair Brown. Robert Beal was a pretty good pick, I thought, as well. So I think overall it was just kind of in the middle a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, we rated it around the same place. So obviously I'm a little more positive. You're a little bit pessimistic. So I gave it a plus. You gave it a solid to minus. So
at least I didn't say minus. Jay Good says, stop complaining about drafting a kicker at the end of the third. Well, that's kind of the show, brother. I mean, we're going to give our opinions. And this is the first show I've done since the draft. And so when I give who I like, I also have to give who I didn't necessarily like. And unfortunately, that was the Jake Moody pick. But that's the way that the format works, my man. I don't know what to tell you. All right. So was there any other team? I know obviously we're watching the San Francisco 49ers, but was there any other team that you felt captured the draft or kind of your attention when you watched them or were paying attention more to their picks or thought they had a good draft? Was there any other team out there?
There was a few, right? Okay. So there was 3 teams, and then there was one pick that I loved the most. Okay. But I'm going to do 2 of the teams because I think you're going to mention one of the teams. So, and these 2 are going to be easy. So hopefully the third one, if I'm thinking on the same wavelength, you'll pick out a team.
But
one is obviously, we're paying attention to our boy DeMeco Ryans over there in Houston, and them to just come out and knock it out of the park as far as go out there, get CJ Stroud, who I think is going to be a really good quarterback, and then trade up to get Will Anderson, I think was awesome for DeMeco's first move, to be able to get his quarterback and, his the defensive lineman that he'd want, I think was great. I think they had, overall really good draft. You could definitely feel like that team could turn around really, really quick. We both are extremely high on DeMeco Ryans' leadership. Obviously, he took, some pieces from the 49ers that we're all really high on. So I think that team's going to make a big turnaround extremely quick with the way that their draft and free agency went. Obviously, the team to me that won, and it's not even close, Jesse, is the Eagles. Not only with the draft picks that they had, the trade for Swift, I think, was obviously really good. They did amazing through free agency, and Howie is like Neo from the Matrix. He's seeing the game a lot different from other GMs, and I always say it on the show. My best friend's an Eagles fan, so I'm pretty tapped into them because I talk to him all the time about his team, and we're talking about 49ers and stuff like that, and what he's able to do with the amount of top draft picks that they have, even though they're coming off of a Super Bowl. Their ability to just draft so well so that they could let a guy like Hargraves walk and still, get replacements for him, extremely quick. I think, they by far had the best draft, and, combined with their free agency, I mean, I think that they have to be the favorite coming out of the NFC right now. On paper, at least.
Yeah. We'll talk about that here in a second, but I like it. I mean, I definitely like what the Texans did for sure. I was really surprised, really surprised that they went with CJ Stroud, and I love that they did. I really thought that CJ Stroud and a lot of the rumors about him were possibly coming from that organization as far as his test scores and what have you, because he has the same agent as Deshaun Watson. And I was like, there's no way they're going to pick him. They're going to be super petty, and it's going to be dumb, and they're not going to take a quarterback. And I was wrong, and I'm happy that I was. I really like CJ Stroud. I think, if he was here with Shanahan would absolutely love this kid. He's extremely accurate, and they're running a Shanahan offense over with Houston. And then to trade back up, just a brilliant move by them. I love that as well. Obviously, the Eagles, it seemed like every time they made a pick, I was like, oh, are you kidding me? Like, they're just drafting stud after stud after stud. I thought Sidney Brown, for me, was probably the second best safety in this draft. They got him in round 3. Kelee Ringo was a player that I thought the 49ers could have and possibly should have taken in round 3 over Moody. They got him in round 4. And then even up until their last pick, Ajomo was on a lot of people's boards. And we're not talking just mocks. We're talking about, some of these guys that do this for a living had him as high as round 4, and they got him in round 7 on top of the first 2 picks they made. Really, really good players there. But for me, I really like what the Pittsburgh Steelers did.
Ooh, I thought you were going
to really like what the Pittsburgh Steelers did. They got an offensive tackle. Joey Porter fell to them in round 2, at the top of round 2. A lot of people thought that he was going to be drafted by the Steelers, but at pick 14, that was not the case. Thought that was a great pick by them. Keanu Benton is a really good pick. They got Washington, the tight end out of Georgia, who's just a behemoth of a man. And, up until the 7th round, they got Trice Jr., who his measurables are insane. We're talking about a 6'3" corner who runs like a 4.45. This is a really good player and a really good prospect, and they got a steal on him. I like what the Steelers did, but there were some teams that I think did a really good job in this draft for sure.
I thought for sure you were going to bring up the Seahawks.
No, I actually wasn't as big of a fan of the Seahawks, to be real with you.
Interesting. I thought they had a really great draft.
Yeah, let's talk about it for a second, because they are a rival of the 49ers.
Yeah, so I mean, they obviously their first pick was the cornerback. What was the name? It's slipping my mind right now, but
Witherspoon.
obviously Witherspoon. There you go.
Yeah.
A lot of people thought he was the best corner in the draft. In a very, very, there was Christian Gonzalez. So there's a lot of good corners. That Joey Porter, a lot of good corners there, and a lot of people had him as the best corner. Matched with who they have at cornerback already there. Obviously, they're building the defense the right way, and then to get Jackson in I don't even have to pronounce his last name, but
Jigba.
In Jigba, there we go.
Or in Jigma or something. I don't know.
I think it's in Jigba, but mixed with the two receivers they already have there, I think is their offense automatically is going to get better, right? So they got more weapons on both sides of the ball. They got another running back. I think they drafted the kid out of UCLA, I believe, right? So to give some more power alongside with Kenneth Walker. I know you've been somebody, Jesse, that is like, Seahawks aren't too far away. And I've been kind of pushing back saying, nah, that, we swept them last year. We're going to be able to get them this year again. I don't think that they've caught up necessarily to the 49ers, but it's competitive now. And they have a lot of weapons there. They're extremely young. So 49ers can't make too many missteps because they're right there, at the heels. And I think it's back to being, the Seahawks and 49ers, 49ers being one, Seahawks being, close to. But that's going to be the rivalry for, years to come because the other teams aren't doing what I think the 49ers and the Seahawks have been doing over the past few years.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was a team I was worried about coming into the process. I thought that they could really close the gap. I definitely think they closed it a little bit. I mean, obviously, when you have that many picks before the 49ers even pick, and they took some good players, I felt like for Seattle, and I would probably give them a solid B, but I felt like for Seattle to really close the gap on San Francisco, they would have to go out and get a top-tier edge rusher, maybe two, because that is an area of opportunity for them. They improved the secondary for sure. Definitely went and got themselves a slot receiver, which is going to be hard to deal with. But I don't think that they closed the gap in the biggest position of need for them, which was at edge rusher. And so, are they going to pressure Brock Purdy or Trey Lance or Sam Darnold? Heaven forbid if he's starting. I hope not. Are they going to put pressure on him, or are we just going to be able to sit back and do what we need to do at quarterback on top of being able to run the ball? I just felt like that was a big miss on their part. But Seattle's going to be just fine this year. They're probably going to be a 10, maybe an 11-win team. They got 4 freebies in the division. Chances are they're going to split with San Francisco. So they're not going to be that far off. I just felt like they could have closed the gap a little bit more. So good draft for me, but not one of my A drafts, if that makes any sense. Thank you, Christopher, for becoming a member. I appreciate you. Flav is back. He says Bell was a terrible pick.
Flav, you right off the bat.
Makes 0 sense. I don't know about that. They should have taken Hunter Luepke, South Dakota. Wasn't he at NDSU? I could be mistaken. I thought he was an NDSU kid, but he might have been South Dakota. One of the Dakotas, either way. He's a baller and would actually be insurance for Juice. Latu didn't love it. Overall, B+ with UDFAs. That's fair. I think for me, they took Braden Willis, and I really think that the hope is he transitions and takes over for Juice. He's an extremely good blocker. Was like top 3 in the nation in run blocking, I think, and top 5 in pass blocking or vice versa. So I think that might be the Juice replacement, Flav. I could be wrong about that. We'll see. But I do like Luepke. I think he would have been a really nice pick for sure. I think he went undrafted, so they could have picked him up as a UDFA, decided not to do that as well. So I think there might be a plan there with Braden Willis. We'll see. I like the Ronnie Bell pick personally. I mean, you go watch him play, Flav. He is a Shanahan guy through and through, no doubt about it. And I do believe this is Jennings' last year with the 49ers, in my opinion. So they need to start stacking up at receiver and see what they got. Maybe go find a replacement, and maybe Bell can be that guy for sure. So we disagree on some of the picks, But I understand where you're coming from. Go ahead.
I think immediately Bell also gives some depth at in the special teams as well. You know,
For sure.
outside of Ray, you know, they put kind of Ayuk back there, but they don't like playing their kind of like superstars in special teams. So I think Ronnie Bell could be a guy that immediately has experience playing in special teams as far as returner. So if Ray is not playing well or injured, at least there's somebody that can jump in right away.
Emiliano kind of caught you here, Flav. I thought those FCS kids don't have any difficult competition. What changed? What makes Lupke such a good prospect coming from the FCS, but Trey was playing against a bunch of FedEx drivers? It's a good question, Emiliano. It's a very good question. I would like the answer to that question for sure. All right. One thing that was talked about maybe a little bit too much was the possibility of Trey Lance and or Brandon Ayuk potentially being traded. Neither one of them were traded. I don't think either of us ever thought that would be the case, that they would be traded, but they are still here. So the rumors aside, they made it through the draft on the 49ers. What are your overall thoughts about them being on the 49ers roster still?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was 0% on both of them when you asked me what's the chance, and you were like 0%. I'm like, yeah, these guys. Like, what's funny is Trey and Ayuk are like the connection. Like they're the ones. Like Trey's best option. The guy that he works out the most with is Ayuk. So it's always funny that those two were like the ones that were going to be drafted, but it just didn't make sense. The 49ers don't have enough quarterbacks to trade away Trey. You know what I mean? And Ayuk, you're going to trade away somebody who's a rising star that you've invested 3-4 years in to develop, and then you're going to like develop him and then ship him off like while he's coming into his own after his best season. Nah, you only do that if you think the guy's going to flop. And the way Ayuk plays the wide receiver position is exactly what the 49ers want. He's an instigator. He blocks through the block, gets underneath the opposing team's skin, could run every single route, great hands. Like, to me, there was no chance that Ayuk was going to get traded, no chance that Trey was going to get traded. The team is much better because both of those guys are still on it.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think my biggest takeaway was not that they stayed, because I thought that would be the case, but I really thought the 49ers were going to draft a quarterback, even if it meant in round 7. Not only did they not draft one, but they haven't even picked up a UDFA unless I've missed one. I have been busy with some family stuff, so that's possible. But to my knowledge, they haven't picked one up. Yeah. So for a team that was so ready to get rid of this problem in Trey Lance, as a insider put it, not only is he still here, but they didn't even try to draft a replacement for him. So clearly they think a little bit higher of him than what people initially thought. And even John Lynch had some praise for him. I think it was Barros had written an article and quoted John Lynch saying something along the lines of, hey, we see a major difference in this offseason in Trey Lance. Whatever he was doing with Christensen, he's picked up. So they like what they see from Trey Lance right now. I'm excited to see it play out. We'll see when Purdy's available, but we both believe that Trey Lance is going to get his shot. He's going to start week 1, and we'll see where it goes from there. But, this thought that they had to move Trey Lance and they are going to draft a rookie so that they could trade him later, that just hasn't happened. And so even for me, I said if Trey Lance gets traded, I would see it more during the season before the trade deadline. Once Purdy's back, you got him healthy, you got a healthy rookie, you got a healthy Sam Darnold and Trey Lance. Maybe that's when Trey Lance would get moved, but they haven't even brought in another rookie. So it looks like Trey Lance, for those that think there's still a chance he's going to get traded, I don't see that. Who's going to come in and be that third guy? They're going to need all these quarterbacks potentially at some point. So I just don't see it happening anymore. And I think that's a really good thing. And then Brandon Ayuk, slowly becoming my favorite player on the 49ers. Absolutely love everything that he brings to the table. And I'm happy that he stayed here as well. I do want to ask you this, though. A lot of people said, well, they didn't pick up his 5th-year option and they waited until after round one had come and gone before they had announced it. So that tells me that they were potentially trying to shop him still. Do you believe that that's the case, or do you think that people are reading into it a little bit too much?
Yeah, I think that's reading into it because I I I don't know what they were doing, but they obviously did the thing with CMC, earlier than they have done before, as far as freeing up, money and all that kind of stuff. With Nick Bosa's extension still on the table there, they didn't really need to do that with CMC unless they have something in mind as far as what they're trying to do or another free agent that they're coming into. So I just think it was more logistics than anything. Like, I personally think there was no doubt in their mind that they were gonna do. There's no. I can't fathom them even thinking that Brandon Ayuk is on the block. Like, there's no reason, or it doesn't make sense why they would trade him. He's their best receiver on the team. Like, he's the best receiver. I mean, people say Debo. Debo to me is a weapon, but as far as just pure receiver, Brandon Ayuk is the best receiver that they have. We don't know what Danny Gray is going to be like. We don't know. Everybody else is, kind of like 1 year's, filler type people. Ayuk is, the future of receiver for the 49ers.
Yeah, I had done some work into when they had picked up their fifth year options in the past, and really wasn't out of the ordinary to wait until after the draft. They did it with Mike McGlinchey. Bosa was right before the draft, so this is kind of how they operate. I didn't look too far into it. I don't think that they were necessarily trying to trade Ayuk. I'm sure they were willing to listen like they are on any other player, and maybe remaining flexible was the right thing to do, but I don't think they ever had any intention in trying to trade Brandon Ayuk. So I'm happy that he's here, most definitely. And I saw a comment in here talking about Sam Darnold and his turnovers. I do actually want to address this. We'll bring this up off the cuff, but this narrative that Sam Darnold is going to be the starter week one, and maybe that's the case. I think it would be a major mistake. A lot of people are making crazy excuses for Sam Darnold right now. And for me, regardless of where you are at, regardless of the talent around you, there are certain things that you're going to do if it is built into you or bred into you. And decision making is one of those things. Sam Darnold has been an awful decision maker in the NFL every step of the way. He fumbles like crazy. He has like 65 turnovers in 56 games and another like 24 fumbles that weren't lost, thank God. But this guy's a turnover machine. And people will say, well, it's because he played for the Jets and the Panthers and they were bad franchises. That's not the case. Sam Darnold was this guy in college. He had 37 turnovers, an additional 4 fumbles that weren't lost. And he did that in 27 games, or maybe it was 36 turnovers in 26 games or whatever. But more turnovers than he has starts, both in college, at USC, by the way, when he was surrounded with some pretty good talent, and again in the NFL. If you are turnover prone, you're turnover prone. If you're a bad decision maker, you're a bad decision maker. And in this 6-game stretch that everybody wants to laud and talk about for Sam Darnold, this man completed 58% of his passes, threw for 190 yards a game. He had 9 touchdowns, 5 turnovers, and 4 additional fumbles that were not lost. Sam Darnold this is who he is. Like, this is who he is. He may play better here than he's ever played. I think that would be fair to think with the talent and Shanahan there. But this thought that he is going to come in and be a game changer or should start week one because he's got more experience than Trey, not all experience is good experience. The only thing that we know about Sam Darnold is he's still turnover prone, just like he was in college. Nothing has changed. This is who he is. I think we know that through 20-something starts in college and 55 starts in the NFL. I don't understand this thought from, it seems like everybody at this point who has a big platform saying that Sam Darnold is not something that we seen him to be. It's like when we played the Eagles in the NFC Championship game, and then we saw it again in the Super Bowl. They kept saying that Lane Johnson, this isn't a false start that he's doing. It's part of the game. He's not jumping off early. Okay. So everybody's telling me that my eyes are lying to me. This dude is jumping early. That is a false start. I don't care what you say. So you got a bunch of people that are literally thinking that we're stupid, and based off of what we're seeing, we're wrong. Sam Darnold is not this special player. I'm sorry. He's not ever going to be a special player. He's never going to be a long-term starter in the NFL, and I do not want him starting for the 49ers. I hope that Brock Purdy comes back healthy and he's either able to start or Trey Lance starts. I don't want to see Sam Darnold suit up and play for the San Francisco 49ers. I'm tired of that narrative. This is who he is, period.
Preach. I do have to say that those that are really in the Sam Darnold should start bin were extremely high on Jimmy Garoppolo, extremely high on Brock Purdy, and very down on Trey Lance. Seems to be kind of like the combination there. So do with that with what you feel, or read into that however way you want to read into that.
Yeah, I mean that's totally fair. I just don't understand it. Like I said, this guy
you understand it. You understand.
No. I understand that. I'm just saying there's a lot of people that are like buying the hype. They're believing it. It's like, have you watched him play ever in your life? Have you ever watched Sam Darnold play? It's atrocious. He's not a good player. He's just not a good player. He has really good traits, but he's a bonehead. That's who he's always been, and that's who he's always going to be. I'm sorry. That's just who he is. Jamal says, blah, 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 all this football talk. I thought this was a sports channel. What's going on, Jesse? Make it make sense. For real, on my mama, jokes aside, always love tuning into you two. Jamal, man, it's been a while. Hope you're doing well. We rarely get to talk on Twitter anymore. Jamal is one of my favorites. Absolutely love him. Thanks for tapping in. And hey, Lakers Golden State starting in 7 minutes. It's going to be a lot of fun for sure. Flav says, I see NDSU as sort of a last chance U of the FCS, basically a powerhouse versus bad competition. Not everyone is a bust, clearly, but yes, bad competition. Lipke played 4 years and was also picked 253, not number 3. Okay, fair enough. He's a fullback, so I would think it's like 6 teams that carry fullbacks. It makes sense that he would go that late. But either way, I get it. If it fits your narrative, Flav, then it fits your narrative. There's nothing I can do to change your mind. All right, let's talk about post-mock NFC power rankings. I want just your top 5 teams in the NFC coming off the draft. I said post-mock. Post-draft NFC power rankings. I'll change that in a second. After the draft, where are your top 5? And where do the 49ers rank in the top 5 of the NFC?
Yeah, so right now, if I'm just unbiased, obviously I want the 49ers to come out the NFC. But number 1 is the Eagles. To me, they
pessimistic, Sunil.
Right, realistic, right? So real, keeping it so real. Eagles, to me, obviously, they have all of their positions established. We're still, don't know who's going to be starting quarterback for the 49ers. So to me, Eagles are 1, 49ers are 2. And to me, that's the class right there. Those are the top 2 teams. And then everybody after that is, a step below. 3, I'm actually going to go Seattle. I think that Seattle is going to make a large leap this year with the continuity that they have. They are adding pieces, not really doing any kind of huge changes. So I think Seattle will end up, the 3rd best team. And then 4th and 5th is interesting to me. I don't really know. I'd probably put Dallas in there somewhere just because, at least in the regular season, they tend to, play well. Obviously, playoffs is a different story. And then I want to give like a pick that I think is just like nobody's thinking about. And I was really thinking hard about it, but I couldn't think of one, man. So I'm gonna go Vikings as the fifth, because they got another receiver there alongside Jefferson. I think that all the slander on Dalvin Cook as far as possibly being traded, all that kind of stuff, I think is going to light a fire under him. And last year for Kirk Cousins, last year of his contract, so we know he's going to be motivated. So I think the Vikings will come back. It'd be the fifth best team in the NFC.
I think the Vikings are actually a bit of a surprise. It's funny you're trying to search for this surprise, but I think you actually did give a surprise. Maybe the chat can set me straight, but I believe that that's a little bit of a surprise. I tend to agree towards the top. I think the Eagles are definitely number one. I think there's a gap right now between them and the 49ers. 49ers are a clear number two, though. There's a big gap between the 49ers and everybody else, in my opinion. And, those are the cream of the crop of the NFC. That is likely going to be your NFC championship, unless seeding falls weird and they have to play each other before. But either way, those are the two best teams. And whoever wins, whenever they do play throughout the playoffs, is likely going to go to the Super Bowl. So those are the two best teams. Number three, I'm actually going to go with Dallas. Their draft was pretty decent, but they traded compensatory picks and went and got Stephon Gilmore. And then they also got Brandon Cooks, which, Brandon Cooks is a really underrated player in the NFL. A lot of people sleep on him. He's gone over 1,000 yards for the Saints, the Patriots, the Texans, and the Rams. So 4 different teams, a myriad of different quarterbacks. A lot of them were awful, and he continues to produce. I think that was a really good pickup by them. And then you add in their draft. I think Dallas is going to be right there. Again, probably more of a regular season team, like you said. They don't necessarily scare me, but I do think they've gotten a little bit better. Number 4, man, I think Seattle probably is that team. You had Seattle at number 3. I think Seattle is probably number 4. And clearly in the NFC West, there's a pecking order. It's the 49ers, it's Seattle, and then who cares about the other two? If we're just being honest about it, they're not going to be very good. And I think Seattle's definitely taken a step forward, not only in the draft, but when you look at the free agency, they've upgraded 5 or 6 starting positions on that defense from last year. And that was an area of opportunity for them. That was the one spot that they needed to upgrade, was defense. And when you get better at 5 or 6 of the starting positions, whether it's through free agency or the draft, you've done a really good job. They are right there. And then number 5 for me, I'm actually going to go with the Detroit Lions. Detroit Lions didn't have the best draft. I thought that they could have done a much better job, in my opinion, but they're still an ascending team. I like that coaching staff and what they're putting together there. Anytime that you have a team that doesn't have anything to play for and they go on the road to Green Bay and beat a team that had everything to play for, that, not that I wasn't already sold on the coaching staff, but that really sold me on them. That team is well coached. That team plays hard. They're an ascending team. They're going to be better this year than last year. I think they're a playoff team, and I actually do think they win that division. And so for me, I'm going to put them at number 5.
My favorite Lions pick was Hendon Hooker. I think that when he ends up getting a chance to play there, he's going to be, I think, the surprise quarterback out of this draft that actually ends up being a very successful starter in the league, in my eyes.
Yeah, I think he could be. I think Clayton Tune, he ended up going to Arizona, I believe. Man, I know that they just signed Kyler Murray to a big deal, but Tune is going to get a chance to play this year as a rookie. That's going to be good for his development. And at the very least, they're going to have probably a really good player behind Kyler Murray for a few years. But, you got a whole new regime coming into Arizona. Long term, are they really going to be tied to Kyler Murray? And if Clayton Tune is as good as I think he potentially could be, Kyler Murray might be gone after another couple years. So we'll see how that plays out. DTR, a lot of people like him. He went to Cleveland. I thought that was really smart for Cleveland. Who knows, if Deshaun Watson is ever going to get it back. We're talking about a really good player before everything happened, but it's a lot of personal stuff going on caused by him, obviously, but that's going to be hard to overcome. We'll see if he ever becomes the same player that he was. Obviously, if he does, he's a clear starter, a long-term guy, but if he doesn't, they definitely went out and got a really cheap insurance policy in DTR that could be a pretty good player too. So yeah, I think there's some good quarterbacks that came out of this draft. And Hendon Hooker, you're right. I think perfect fit for the Lions. He's coming off the ACL. He's going to need some time. They have their starter this year, but Goff is not likely the guy that you want there long term. And Hendon Hooker might be that guy. It's a good pick.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, listen, this was the show. Lakers, Golden State Warriors. I'm sure everybody wants to go watch that. I'm actually out of town for the whole week. Yeah, I know you're a Laker fan. I'm out of town for the whole week. This is the only day that I was going to be able to get away and actually do a show. So I'm not going to have any other shows the rest of the week, unfortunately. I'll be back to the regular schedule next week. Appreciate y'all for tapping in. Much love. We'll talk soon. Peace.